Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Deal Scout. We love talking about deals with deal makers and learning about different industries, how things work. Today, we're going to have a conversation about private equity backed portfolio companies and value creation with that with Miss Summer Craig. Summer, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks. And I'm glad to be with you.
Yeah. All right. Where are you dialing in from today?
Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas. Very, very sunny, very hot.
Yeah, Houston, Texas. Love it. My son was born in Dallas, so right up the road from you guys. Summer, what do you do?
Yeah. What we do at Craig Group is we help portfolio companies grow. So that's essentially the simplest terms. We grow through sales and marketing strategies. So we like to meet private equity firms or independent sponsors, even family offices that have portfolio companies that have a growth issue, or maybe they've just acquired them and they're ready for a step change. And we come in and help them grow.
Yeah. Now, why portfolio backed or PE backed? Why family backed? Why did you go after backed companies?
Great. That's a great question. So I kind of, I many years ago, I worked for HomeAway.com, and they were backed at that time by Austin Ventures. Now I was lucky enough to be with them when they IPO'd. They're now known as Verbo.com. You might see the new TV ads. And then they essentially, after that time, they acquired a few more companies and then exited to Expedia. But I that was my first really understanding of what the equity markets looked like, and I was fascinated by it. Obviously, the multiples, the money to be made was really kind of out of any other money that you could make in sales and marketing. And so it was interesting to me. And then my husband happened to be in private equity for many years. So I was exposed to the market. And then when I founded the company 5 years ago, it was a friend of a friend at one of those, God things. My first client happened to be a huge private equity backed portfolio company. So that they just kind of connected the dots for a few things that were in my head. And when I saw that, I realized that the core founding of Craig Group was about really being able to create value and report on it. So reporting on ROI, especially to boards, that was the founding group. But I realized that nobody was really doing that in the middle market for these portfolio companies. Like nobody was calling on them, nobody was trying to solve that problem, and getting into private equity is hard. So I saw some white space, and we've been able to position ourselves there and to have our own niche in the marketplace.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So you had an opportunity. First of all, your husband works in private equity, so that helps. So you get the insights. Now, without going, this isn't an interview about him, but what does he do in private equity?
Yeah, he's since left the industry. He's now operating a company. So still in the industry, and that he's in a backed company, but he's now an operator. But in his role, he was an oil and gas private equity investor. Very a little different because they were up market from what we do in terms of really big deals, really only oil and gas focused. So slightly different, but I did learn at least quite a bit more about the financial engineering. So that's the piece. I mean, I'm a classically trained marketer, and also have had lots of years in sales capacities, but I certainly didn't know anything about deal structure. I didn't know what a cap table was, 20 years
Hmm.
ago. He's really I've been able to kind of be a silent observer from him, and ask questions, just be in the industry and learn quite a bit over the years.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Now, I'll tell you, I've been in. I'm now investment banker and dealing with working with family offices and public companies. But my background is in sales and marketing and podcasting and media, and it seems as though there's this huge chasm between the creatives of the world or the visionary, sales guys and gals, and then the financials, the people who look at the numbers. You're bridging that gap, and you're able to communicate that. How do you think that sets you apart from other marketing companies or branding agencies?
Yeah, I mean, Josh, you really kind of hit on why the company exists and why we founded it. I mean, I'll tell you, we have a new product that we're actually launching right now in the marketplace, and this product is a forecasting tool. And the reason why we're doing it is because what we see in the middle market is there's the financial team over here, and they're looking at ERP data, right? They're looking at financials, and it's really based on what has happened in the past. Very rarely is that document walked over to the marketing head, maybe a CRO, maybe a VP of sales and marketing, that role. And very rarely do they say, hey, here's my financial forecast. Can you show me your pipeline? And can we look at them together and then think about what we need to do? Large companies do it all the time, but in the middle market, it's just less of something that happens. And so we actually start our engagements talking about that. That's the beginning for us. And so everyone in the firm, it doesn't matter if you're a writer, it doesn't matter if you're a designer, it doesn't matter if you're a strategist, everyone in the firm is looking at what's the EBITDA goal and what was the past financial forecast against the pipeline, right? So that is what has to be everyone's goal, no matter what their functional role is in the firm.
Interesting. Now let's just say, I think I might be generalizing this, but I think it's true because I've interviewed 2,000 people and it feels like this is true, is this gap between the business side of the business and then the creative or sales side of the business. And sometimes sales kind of bridges the gap between marketing and financial. How does having an EBITDA focus across the board to the marketer or the person doing the social media, how does an EBITDA focus change the way they market?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So there's two things there. The first thing is, I think that some people maybe that haven't been in classical marketing, let's say they're coming from a finance background, like an investor like you, a lot of times they look at marketing as something that is extra, fluffy, immeasurable, right? Those are words that maybe they think about marketing. And they look at sales as linear, direct, cause and effect, right? We have a completely different view. My personal view and our firm view, there is absolutely no difference between sales and marketing. It is the difference in sales is to one person or to fewer people. It's when you have an extremely small target. Marketing is one to many people. It's the same thing though. Like we need to be using the same content, the same messaging, the same ideal customer profile pain points, right? It's just marketing is one to many. Sales is one to one or one to few, but the function of them, the why are we doing this? What's our goal? It is exactly the same. So we look at marketing as there's leading indicators like reach, engagement, potentially getting into leads, but those are leading indicators. The lagging indicator that we're going after, right, is revenue and eventually EBITDA. But we look at it on a continuum where the marketing person, they are just as beholden to that EBITDA, even though they're focused on leading indicators. That doesn't mean we're not looking at it all the way through. So the end goal is the lagging indicator, the one that's final, which is EBITDA. The one right before that, right, we can look at revenue a little bit easier from our perspective. But our team, we're selling all the time. We're either selling to a lot of people, but we're selling to one person. But either way, you should know exactly what their pain points are, what your messaging is, how do you speak to them. So we just look at it as though it is fully integrated, and that's how our team is trained.
Yeah, so training I think is beautiful. So it's one thing to take a creative and to say, here's a cap table, here's what EBITDA means, here's what this, right? And start teaching that. And it's on the flip side, going to the CFO and saying, okay, buddy, here's what marketing looks like, and here's why we're posting on TikTok or YouTube or, and here's how it connects. So it's an education on both sides, right? And you came from a background of classically trained marketing. How do you talk to the CFO or the board and teach them this is why we're doing TikTok or fill in the blank?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a step in there though that I would like to focus on, which is really we have to define real goals, and then there's business goals, and those business goals ladder to marketing goals. So I'm going to talk to the CFO and the board about that first before we ever talk about any kind of channels and tactics. So we're really going to talk about goals, and when I say goals, we're talking very literal, measurable goals, and sometimes those are easier than others. But most of our clients in the lower middle market, especially most of them are B2B. We don't work with a ton of clients that have just general brand awareness metrics, but that's still valid. I mean, we do some B2C, and there's still something there about general brand awareness. We don't do tons of it. But I need the CFO and the board to understand that awareness, even if it's in a less of a brand standpoint, but awareness and leading consumers down a buying journey, just like we all buy, right? We buy things off Amazon, we buy from the store. Even if it's B2B, there's still people buying something. Like
Hmm.
it's still, you still have to market and sell to them. Just, even if it's something, industrial equipment, whatever it is, you still have to sell these people. So I'm going to have that conversation first, a little bit getting on kind of behavioral economics. So
Ooh.
I'm going to talk to the CFOs and I'm going to talk to the board about that. And that's what we're going to talk about. And then at some point, hopefully the board and the CFO are not talking about channel level execution. But if they do, and if they want to see it, we can then say, we're then going to define our ideal customers. And if those ideal customers are interacting on, let's call it TikTok, probably not in industrial B2B, but you never know. But let's say that ideal customer profile is living in that space and that's their community, then that's why it would make sense to market to them in that space. So the channels and the tactics are we remove those really substantially from the why are we doing this and how much is it going to cost conversation, because I think they can also get very distracting. It gets them more into a shiny object that everybody wants to focus on. But the strategy and the why and talking about the consumer, that has to be the conversation I'm going to have with the board before we talk about tactics.
I think that's so brilliant. I think a lot of times marketers, like I said, that's my background in sales and marketing. We approach things as this is what we're doing and this is how it looks, and and then the business case for it is where I think we fall out, and that's where I think it creates the conflict because they go,
Mhm.
"Why did you do that?" And you go, "Well, this is where the people are hanging out." But if making a business case for your marketing, it makes sense. And it should make sense to both players if both players have the same business objective in mind.
That's right.
Now, with mid-market, what size groups are you working with in terms of employee load?
So generally the mid-market, we in the private equity world, I mean, those are typically defined by revenue or
Mm.
EBITDA.
Yep.
So for us, really 20 million in EBITDA is around the smallest that we work with, going all the way up to 150, 100, range. That's how the middle market is defined. Employees, it varies tremendously depending on the industry. We work with all industries. We do have a focus and a practice around healthcare technology, and industrials and manufacturing. And that's more of a reason. The reason that we have it is just because that's what most deals are in. There's just not a lot of those verticals are popular in middle market private equity.
Yeah.
So our team we've got experience there, but so we're right in the middle. So these companies are not small. They've had some success. They're doing some things right. They usually don't have any internal marketing or sale. The sales function is typically not commercialized. It's very, to put it one way, they're kind of just cowboying it. They've been really successful, but they can't scale it.
Mhm.
So that's usually where they are. There's no marketing function. That's typically the type of companies we see.
We speak the language of value creation. Craig Group is a revenue growth advisor for middle market private equity backed portfolio companies. That is such a great niche, such a great message. It's short, sweet, to the point. People understand what you're doing. You put that on your website. Why do why do most companies struggle at creating such a
Mhm.
very clear message like you guys have done for yourselves?
Well, thank you. That was a hard written statement. It took, probably 3 years to probably get it that crisp. So I'd say two things about it. The first thing is we iterated and we pivoted. We've had a few different framings of the work we did, and it took us a while to get here. We take feedback very seriously. We have a feedback culture. We ask our clients for feedback. So we really found that niche through the successes we were having. We realized where are we really truly having success, and that was where we landed. I think also, and we got into this a little bit in the beginning of Craig Group, and a lot of companies do this, and we advise this. We know exactly who we're selling to, and it's hard, right? Because you might have people knock on your door that are not those people that you're selling to. And it's hard to do, but we're able to say, we're not the best fit for you. This is what we do. And I mean, our portfolio companies we work with, they struggle with that, which is what, if you're selling a product that anybody can buy, it's really hard to sell more of it because it's very hard to define that audience and win market share. So we have leaned in to a little bit of our own medicine on this and said, no, this is what we do. and we're going to say no to some people, and it's painful as a, as a business owner and entrepreneur to say no. But it's just what has to happen to grow.
It has to happen. When I find myself stressed out the most, I find myself spread thin, but not just like I'm taking care of too many people, I'm taking care of too many different types of things. So I
Yeah.
have to shift my brain or shift function to address each client type. And I've recently had to fire myself from different types of groups because I said now with this,
Hmm.
investment banking and owning a media company and doing this with it, I couldn't switch gears. So I had to fire myself. I said, hey, they're like, well, we want to keep going. I said, it's not about the money. It's about time and focus.
Hmm.
When you created your time and focus, you said pivots happen. You had to pivot, you had to change direction. What was the hardest part of narrowing down to this private equity backed portfolio company, growth advisor, middle market niche? That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so with great question. I've got a story about it. So I mean, guys, I have a marketing background. My functional expertise is in digital transformation, digital go-to-market. I mean, I've been doing it since, the internet began. That's been my career. So working in big agencies and then working in-house, and it's been all about digital transformation and also about transacting digital. So media, how to buy that media, how to measure the media. Very strong focus on marketing tech stacks. This really came up with the beginning of MarTech and what that was. So that's my functional expertise. Most of that, the digital side, yes, but the media and the functional expertise is not needed in the middle market. They're not big enough. They're not there. The digital, yes, but they're not buying media. Sometimes we'll do, sometimes they are. So sometimes we do Google ads, sometimes we do that, but are they doing like huge digital campaigns? Do they need to really have a large MarTech stack? Probably not. They need to have, CRM, ERP, but do they need all these tools? No. So one of the biggest problems for us in this company is I have this functional expertise. A couple of my employees do. And we had a huge client and they were private equity backed, but they were really focusing on this type of media buying and scaling through media, which is a part of growth. Don't get me wrong, it is still a part of growth. But
Mm.
that was what they were buying from us. They weren't looking at us as a strategy partner. They weren't looking at us as a sales partner. They weren't, and it wasn't right. It wasn't right. And so we had to make the difficult decision to pivot away from that client. Because if we kept scaling that group and that part of our business, we were going in a direction that wasn't quite where we wanted to go. And so that was a super challenging decision. It was really hard to give up a client, and then also
Yeah.
to move away from work that I love. I'm really comfortable with it.
What part of the work gives you the most joy? Like, where do you find your joy in the work space, in the work, like actual doing of the work? Like, where do you find your joy?
Yeah. I am the most happy, the most excited when we have a new client and we're doing that initial discovery. So I love to solve problems. That's what I want to do. I want to think about somebody has a problem and how can we use the vast experience of our team to bring forth solutions to them. So when I'm listening to a new CEO, this happened to me yesterday, actually, it was a great call we had. And he said, here's what I've got it. We're so successful, but we have all this market share that we need to get. Like it's sitting there for us. We can get it. How do we do that? I love that. Thinking through the business. Okay, so how do clients find you today? Then tell me about their buyer journey. Do they call you? Do they email you? Who talks to them? What do they say? What's your process? And so that is when digging into a new problem, that's really when I'm at my most joyful. I love listening, hearing, understanding a new company. It's fascinating, seeing the people. And it's so satisfying then being able to do that with my team, that then we are able to bring forth something that is clarifying, simplifying, and bringing forth this.
When it comes to weaknesses or things that rob you of your joy, it could even be super profitable, but there's things in the business process that rob us of our joy. Even if we're making a lot of money, you're like, I'm just gonna not do it or avoid it like hell, right? Like what is that for you?
Yeah, for me, that is handling any sort of like billing or accounting functions. That was my second employee I hired. My first employee is now essentially our COO, and I love her, and she does that work. But I knew that if I had to be anywhere dealing with like billing and paying invoices and looking through that I hate it. I hate that. It stresses me out. I just feel like I can't manage it. So that was my second employee. I realized that early on that this is not what I want to be doing. It's kind of, sucks my soul out on that. So she's been with us now for 5 years, and I have a trusted AR and AP team, and that was really something for me. That's not. I don't like it, and if I don't like it, then I put it off.
Yeah.
So then you can't do that. So, but yeah, I was able to get some help on that part of the business.
Yeah. Well, you answered the question, who was the first hire, and essentially that person stepped into the role as COO, the second in command to IC. So visionary am I looking at the visionary, and that other person's more of the integrator?
No, I don't think so. So, I don't think so. I mean, that person in that role is really somebody that kind of almost gave me, I've worked with her for years and years, and she gave me almost to feel like a security, that I had
Nice.
somebody there to help me. She has a functional expertise, and so she still does functional work. The person in the company that's really been the one that's brought, kind of really leveled up our group has been, Libby Covington, who's a partner in the firm, and she's been with us now for 4 years. And me and her lead the firm, and so we're the leaders. I don't know that I would call. I mean, I founded it. She joined a year later. I'm not sure if we can label our roles. We might both kind of come in and out of that. But me and her are the ones that tackle the business, and I do handle all of the operations, people, and client business. So maybe I'm the operator. She handles mostly external BD and hiring.
Cool.
So
Now, before I hit record, and you and I have had conversations in the past, I asked you, is there anything I can't ask you? But I'm going to take a risk with this because I think it's important for people to hear. Um, you mentioned you and two other females. You guys, in looking at your leadership, is heavily driven by female founders or female leaders, and I think it's beautiful. I have two daughters whom I hope one day could come work with you. Uh, just saying, maybe
I,
get them
I
in,
would love that.
You're in the private equity space, which is primarily driven by male-dominated, community, right? So, how did mindset have to change or have to evolve, or who did you have to become to step into this space? So I hope I'm
Yeah.
not overstepping with this. I hope you could feel my love for this.
I actually am really glad you asked it. I think it's an important question. It's important. I'm sure your listeners all want to hear and relate to it. So, I mean, I think that it is still almost all men. There is more women in private equity, but they're mostly in an analyst or maybe a VP position. There's very few women that are at an MD or investment committee level. There's more. There's more than there ever was, but there's very few. So that's just a fact of the industry. There's also even less female CEOs of portfolio companies. So that we see even less. Like I have now in 5 years, we've never worked with a female CEO that was private equity backed. And so it is what it is, but it's unfortunate, and I'm glad to hear that it's changing. Couple things on that. I do think there are some times where it can be a little bit broy still, and they don't want to hear from me. And I don't know if it's necessarily because I'm a woman or because I'm younger or because I didn't come from the space. There's lots of reasons why they may not want to hear from us. One of the other reasons why I hired Libby is because she came out of private equity. And so I realized there's some shortcomings there and filled that gap. But I mean, if, to be perfectly frank, like, yeah, we probably don't get a few meetings because it's like, who's this woman like emailing me? Who's this marketing girl? So a couple of ways that we've been able to overcome that. One is I really do like to get in front of people and for speaking opportunities, especially in smaller groups. There's a group called ACG, there's a group
Mhm.
called Independent Sponsor Forum. We do like to speak in front of them. I do think when they see me or another one of our leaders speaking about what we do and they hear us and they meet us, it's like it's just a breakthrough. So a lot of that female male thing, it kind of falls apart once they feel like, oh wait, you actually know what you're talking about. So there definitely is that. But there's times where there's some doors that, and to be perfectly honest too, I don't think it's on purpose. I think it's a little bit subconscious, where they're just maybe not answering the email or not following because it's just a view. They're not used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that it's something that's an issue. I also had to overcome, and I work on it all the time, around feeling a little bit of an imposter syndrome, in your head about like, wait, do I fit here, right? Like answering that question for myself. And I think that the truth of the matter is absolutely I do. Absolutely. And so does my team. And so do we do. But it's not like that self-doubt doesn't exist because of the culture of the industry.
Oh, tough question just popped in my head, but we're going to go there. Right? So if you could be on the receiving end of some level of, and it might be subconscious, it might not be intentional. Let's just say let's hope for the best in this situation. But
Yeah.
you might not get a meeting or you might not. How do you keep your heart open and kind towards people who might not have that naturally to you, and you might have to work harder at earning it by doing face to face and showing them your worth and maybe working harder than others? How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll answer this too another way. Whether you're a woman, a man, whatever you are in this world, we have to have earned trust. So that's on me. Like I have to earn that trust, and I don't just get that trust. And some people, right, if I was a man that came out of a PE fund, maybe I wouldn't have to earn it because I already would have earned that trust. But we've got to earn it. And for us, that means we're out there speaking. We're asking, it takes multiple meetings. So we do have to earn it. So I think that's something that Craig Group is here for that. That's what we're going to do. And so we hustle, we get our hands dirty, we actually do work, so we have a culture here of hard work. So that doesn't bother me. I'm going to outwork anybody kind of anyways,
Yeah.
male, female, or otherwise. But the other side of the coin is there's, slightly under 4,000 PE firms in the US that invest in the middle market. If somebody is hard to get to and I'm feeling a vibe that I don't like, I mean, there's a lot of other fish in the sea. So we're not gonna waste our time with people that don't want to be open and want to understand. I mean, if they're not here for this and they're not open to it, then that's just not a good fit for it.
Summer, where do you get your drive from? Where's your grit and your drive from?
I mean, I don't know. I think it may be probably from the grace of God. It's just is how I would say is that's it. I mean, I was, the kind of kid that was just a, good student, straight A's, did all the things, got into college as I want. And that's just sort of, that's how I think God put me on the earth, was to be this way. And I did realize the reason why I founded the company, actually, one of the core personal reasons I founded the company, was I founded it a month after I had my third baby. And I realized that I wasn't going to work any less. Like I could have coasted a little. I had this best job. I worked for a private family, a family office, the Friedkin family and their Gulf States Toyota brand. Best family, best people, best job. I could have like downshifted a little, and I had an epiphany that I was never going to do that. I was never ever going to do it. I was going to work as hard as I could, and if I'm going to do that, I should build something myself, because then I can reap more of my own value as opposed to working as hard as I knew I was going to work. But you work in a corporation, you don't really get the upside. You also are protected from downside, but you don't get the upside, right? But it's like, I knew if I'm going to hustle, I'm going to scale a company. Why not do that? So that was kind of, I knew that in my heart about myself. Where it comes from, again, I think that's a question for the Lord.
I love how you talk about your faith and some things that I think we just can't answer, and we go, this is the grace of God. I have no clue how I'm here. People ask me like, so how did you get into family office investment? I said a lot of failure and God's grace, because there's no other explanation for it. I shouldn't be here.
That's right. That's right. Sometimes that's the way it is. That's the way it is.
Life, I won't give up. I'm relentless. So you had your third kid. And then you're like, I should build a business, which 3 kids is a lot. I have 3 kids. All right.
Yep.
Starting a business is a lot. It's like almost having like four kids, right? Building a business is tough. Um, when you went this route, what was your greatest fear and hope for building your
Mm,
own business?
yeah. Ooh, I don't know. That's a good question. I will tell you that my husband and I also got, and we have an elderly dog, but we also got a new puppy. So it was just, we just, it's like we did all the things. Yeah. So we did everything as hard as possible. Um, but yeah, I mean, I remember having the thought when when I started the company, I thought I was, a well compensated employee. I was, in a senior position, and I thought, well, wouldn't this just be so great if I could like make more than my stretch salary goal would have ever been? Like, and knowing like
Yeah.
what my real earnings would have been if I had stayed here and like, kept got the bonus and all the things. Like, wouldn't that be so cool to just do that and not have, so that was kind of my original. So again, that's very specific. It's not grandiose, but that was kind of in my head. And then of course on the other side is this, absolute fear of like, or it could totally fail. Like, I mean, totally fail. And then what is that story? What does that mean? I tried this thing and then failed. It's just like, what would that be? And I gotta be honest, I felt it at first, and then I just never have paid attention to it.
Mm.
It's just been like that is on the table, right? You can always fail, even though we've made it 5 years. We're past I don't think the statistical average is 2 or 3. So I'm like, okay, well, we've made it past like the statistical failure average, but everything could always go away.
Yeah.
I think so. I just didn't pay attention to it very much, and I just did pay attention. What if I could just make it, which I ended up doing in 9 months. So it was like, okay. So goal check, new goal. Yeah. So then it was like, well, what if we double it?
Mm.
Oh, what if we so that was the initial kind of hope. It was very revenue focused. Because again, this is not a nonprofit. So it was very revenue focused, and we've ended up scaling.
Growing up, what kind of careers did your parents have?
Yeah. My mom has owned her own hair salon for 40 plus years. So she's just a, master small business owner and manager of other hairdressers, and also a beloved, beauty consultant for all women in Richmond, Texas. So, she was, fantastic in her own right. But in terms of like, formal education or formally the kind of what we consider traditional drive, like in a corporate setting, no. But I mean, here she is, woman, owned her own business, was doing her own thing, and has always had has worked very, very, very hard.
Yeah.
But has also had a really good go of it. My dad has been in the oil and gas industry for many, 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 many years. And ups and downs in that through the 80s and 90s. Ended up having a really lovely career with Halliburton. That's how we got to Houston. And has now pivoted later in his life to working with another great company in Houston, doing some logistics that are oil and gas adjacent. But my parents are fairly hardworking, blue collar family. Um, Beyond them, I mean, I come from really rural, simple North Texas, Southern Oklahoma, farming, ranching, small town community. So that we just worked hard, was grateful for what we had, but a pretty simple, not very extraordinary background. Small town Texas, on the suburb of Houston, and it was wonderful and happy, but simple.
Yeah. Where do you think where do you think private equity misses out the most, right? Obviously, they should come work with you, right? But private equity group that has a handful of portfolio companies, mid-market, where do you think that they're missing the biggest chunk of upside?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm going to say in their organic growth. I mean, that's what we do. And I think that so many PE firms are now, they're totally aware of this. Those that haven't really leaned in are starting to. Interest rates, even though they're better than they were, they're too high to just go buy a bunch of companies, put them together and sell it and hope you make money on the kind of financial engineering. So those days are over. So I think all of them are now realizing, when I buy this company, I don't just have to look at the financial team and look at the operations. I have to look at how do I actually sell more widgets, whatever it is, right? And so sometimes I think kind of some private equity firms, smaller, I would say, larger ones no, but smaller, they still, I think that a focus on excellence in financials and like excellence in streamlining things like systems, processes. I think they still think that that can be a growth driver, and it can maybe some efficiency, but usually in the PE firms, there's not a functional expertise around growth. And what I mean by growth is very literally more top line, whatever they're selling, either selling more to the same customers or selling to new customers. There's no one in the firm that has that training. Some of them are hiring operating partners that have a little bit of that training. And so that's been hugely helpful, but a lot of them are still not, they're not experts at that. And so, you know, when you're not expert at it, you don't want to pay attention to it. You know, so that's, I think, the opportunity that PE firms have, especially in the middle market.
I love it. Where could people go to find out more about you and learn, you know, more about what your company could offer them?
Absolutely. Check out our website, craiggroup.io. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn. I talk about a lot of things, might be interesting, might not be interesting. But you can go check me out, Summer Craig, and then also craiggroup.io on LinkedIn as well.
What question should I have asked you, Summer, that I screwed up and did not ask you? You're like, I can't believe it was right there, Josh. I tossed it up for you and you missed it.
I mean, I'll say right now, I don't have, I'm not right now thinking about that. So I don't have anything, I don't have any lost opportunities that I want to like plug in right now. I don't feel that way. I think that you're a tremendous interviewer.
Thank you.
And I'm sure your audience would agree. You're great to spend time with.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, as always, reach out to our guests. We want to be a community of deal makers that appreciate those who give and contribute. So reach out to our guests, say thank you. Their contact information will be in the show notes below. If you have a deal or a deal type, a structure, or something that you'd like to talk about here on the show, head over to thedealscout.com, fill out a quick form, maybe get you on the show next. Till then, see you guys on the next deal. Cheers.